Aren't all religions basically the same? What about those that never heard the gospel? And is Jesus the only way to salvation? These are some of the questions we want to explore in this series on world religions and new religious movements.
Thy kingdom come. The Lord is the King, and the King is coming again.
Islam, the second largest religion in the world, with 1.8 billion followers in the world and 3.5 million followers in the United States alone. It started in the 7th century AD in present-day country of Saudi Arabia, with the founder being the Prophet Muhammad. While there are many Muslim majority population countries such as Algeria and Egypt, Iran, Iraq, and the most populous Muslim country, Indonesia, there are Muslims throughout the entire world. Muhammad was a sheep herder in Saudi Arabia who began to receive revelations from the angel Gabriel. And as he received these revelations and began to utter them to his followers, they began to write them down on stone and rock and wood. As they gathered them together, this became their sacred text called the Quran. They worship Allah, the Arabic word for God, and they worship in a mosque as they pray 5 times a day. As Muhammad's religion grew in the city of Mecca, he began to receive persecution from the people in the town. He fled to the city of Medina, north of Mecca, and his following grew into the thousands. And then he returned back to Mecca and established the religion of Islam permanently in that city, the most sacred place in Islam. In Mecca, they have the Kaaba, or sometimes called the Black Box. It's a mosque, the most sacred place that Muhammad traveled to. Each year, they make a pilgrimage to Mecca, and the population increases well over 1 million people in that city. As Islam grew in Saudi Arabia and Muhammad died, the question who would take over the religion became very prevalent for the Muslims. This became the Caliph, or the successor of Muhammad, and this is where we get the major division in Islam today between the Shiites and the Sunni. The Sunni, the majority, which is about 90% of all Muslims today, followed Muhammad's father-in-law, that it should be those with good character and virtue that should lead the people of Islam. But then there was the Shiite, the splinter group, the minority group of Islam who wanted to follow Muhammad's son-in-law, Ali. And those two divisions are still prevalent in Islam today, the Sunni and the Shia. The sacred text of Islam is called the Quran, which means speech, or to recite. And in the Quran, there are many versions circulating in the Arabic world. And the third caliph, Uthman, began to gather them together, and they officially recognized one of them as the official version of the Quran today. And it's divided into 114 sections called surahs, in which there are different revelations from Allah. These are commandments that Muslims are to follow. And how these commandments are followed are determined by the hadith. The hadith are the oral teachings of Muhammad as they begin to live out the teachings of the Quran. While the Quran is the ultimate final revelation, a lot of the practices of Islam come from the hadith itself. Some of the distinctive features and beliefs and practices of Islam include a monotheistic belief about God. God is one. This is central to the Islamic religion itself. And the problem with humanity is they are sinful. They have disobeyed the law of Allah. The way of salvation is through obedience to the commands of Allah. They are required to recite their Shahada, stating that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet. While they consider the other prophets of the Old Testament and New Testament, Christianity and Judaism, to be legitimate prophets, Muhammad is the final prophet according to Islamic teaching. One particular feature is called the 5 pillars of faith, or 5 practices in Islam. The first is the confession of faith, the Shahada. There is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his prophet. Also, they pray consistently 5 times a day, facing Mecca. Third, they give alms or charitable giving to those in need. They also fast during the month of Ramadan. And the 5th pillar, if at all possible, is a pilgrimage to Mecca, just as Muhammad did in his own lifetime. When one dies in Islam, a scale will be set before the individual in which they will measure their good works versus their bad works. And if you perform more good works than bad, then you will be ushered into paradise. But if you do not perform more good works than bad, then you'll be cast into hell. So it's all based on the work of the individual, obeying the law of Allah as dictated in the Quran and described in the Hadith that determines salvation for a Muslim. As we study world religions, I want to compare Jesus, the founder of Christianity, with the founder of each religion, what each religion says about their founder, and what Christianity says about Jesus in comparison. For example, Jesus is founded in history. We have documents that date within 30 to 40 years of the life of Christ. For Muhammad, we have myth and legend incorporated into his life. The earliest biographical information is 125 years after Muhammad's life. Another thing comparing Jesus with Muhammad is Jesus is morally perfect. He is completely sinless. But Muhammad was sinful. He was not morally perfect. Jesus is God incarnate. Muhammad is a prophet and a way shower, not God himself, as he even admitted. In fact, Jesus is resurrected and alive from the dead today. Muhammad died and is buried even today. So as we compare Jesus with Muhammad, Jesus is superior in every way.